Karen tore out the tomato plants like they were weeds. She didn't ask? She didn't check the sign clearly posted at the edge of the plot, the one that read, "Reserved garden beds for disabled residents, do not disturb." She just showed up, gardening gloves on, sun hat tilted just so, and started ripping. When someone approached her, gently, carefully, to let her know that this section was for people in wheelchairs, she scoffed. "They weren't using it right," she said, yanking out another basil plant. "This is what happens when you let amateurs manage public space." Then she installed a wooden sign that read, "Karen's Corner, organic and proud." What she didn't know: the woman who originally built that garden bed may not have had strong legs, but she had a strong voice. And she worked for the mayor. It began quietly. The community garden was one of the few things this neighborhood had truly built together. It sat right between the townhome complex and the city's new inclusive playground. 5 rows of raised beds, designed specifically to be accessible for residents with physical limitations, wide pathways, low ledges, ergonomic tools. It was never fancy. But it mattered. It gave people a reason to get outside. To dig. To grow. To talk. For Ms. Evelyn, a retired librarian in a motorized wheelchair, the garden wasn't just dirt and plants, it was her freedom. She'd spent 6 months getting the permits, coordinated with the city council, helped raise the funds, brought in volunteers, even built a bench with her late husband's name on it, right under the shade of the peach tree. So when she rolled up that morning and saw Karen standing in her plot with a shovel, she stopped cold. "Excuse me," Evelyn said. "That's my space." Karen didn't even look up. "Not anymore," she replied. The week before, Karen had just moved into the neighborhood. Her Lexus SUV still had out-of-state plates. Her online bio listed, community activist and wellness coach. She introduced herself at the HOA meeting with an unsolicited 30-minute monologue on composting. People smiled politely. But she didn't get the message. No one expected her to target the community garden. At first, she just made suggestions. "The layout is all wrong. Why are the paths so wide? Some people just use this space as an excuse to socialize." Then she started showing up unannounced, rearranging tools, relabeling beds. And finally, without permission, she claimed the plot that had always belonged to Evelyn, the one with lavender, heirloom tomatoes, and a small sign that read, "Grown with love, not legs." Karen pulled the sign out first. Then the plants. Then the respect. That's when things shifted. Someone snapped a photo. Posted it online. And the internet did what the internet does best. It noticed. Because when you rip a garden from a woman in a wheelchair and put your name on it, you better hope she's not connected to City Hall. Which, unfortunately for Karen, she was. The neighborhood wasn't anything fancy. Just a cozy corner of a mid-sized town, rows of modest townhouses, retired teachers, single parents, military veterans, and a whole lot of people who knew each other by first name. It wasn't rich. It wasn't trendy. But it had heart. And at the center of it all, literally and figuratively, was the Meadowview Community Garden. The garden had started as an empty lot filled with weeds and beer cans. Then Evelyn showed up. She'd moved into a ground-floor unit with wide doorways and a backyard she couldn't quite reach. Her legs didn't work like they used to, but her mind? Sharp as ever. Her voice? Steady and polite, but firm. She asked the city for access to the empty lot. They told her it wasn't being used. She told them it would be. 6 months later, the weeds were gone, the beds were built, and a new plaque had gone up near the entrance. A place for everyone to grow. It was never just about gardening. Sure, there were vegetables and flowers and seasonal cleanups. But it was also where kids learned how to plant something with their hands. Where the elderly swapped stories under the old oak tree. Where neighbors who never used to talk started greeting each other by name. There was no manager. No security camera. No gate. Just a quiet understanding, respect the space. Respect the people. That unspoken rule lasted 5 years. Until Karen arrived. She didn't blend in, not even for a second. She walked like she owned the block. Loud phone calls. Passive-aggressive. Suggestions. A clipboard that never left her side. At her first HOA meeting, she introduced herself by interrupting the agenda to ask why the benches near the playground weren't aesthetically consistent. Then she said the trash pickup lacked cohesion. Then she brought up the garden. I noticed there's no real system of supervision, she said. Some of the beds are, frankly, underutilized. We should reorganize for maximum output. Evelyn raised her hand. We already have a system. Each plot belongs to a resident who applied through the accessibility board. There's a wait list. Karen smiled tightly. Well, I didn't see my name on any list. So I'm starting my own. Nobody took her seriously, at first. But then came the day she showed up early. Really early. Before most residents were awake. She moved in fast, dug up the beds, installed her own signage, planted rows of ornamental lettuce, and laid down pebbles from Home Depot in a mismatched mosaic pattern. When residents walked by on their morning dog walks, they froze. When Evelyn rolled up and saw the lavender bed gone, she stared at the dirt like it was a gravestone. Evelyn didn't shout. She didn't cry. She went home. Then she made one phone call. To her niece, Samantha. Samantha didn't live in Meadowview. She lived in the next neighborhood over. She also happened to be the public access liaison for the mayor's office. And Samantha loved her aunt. Within 48 hours, the entire incident was being reviewed by the city. Samantha wasn't subtle. She showed up in person, clipboard in hand, camera crew in tow, wearing a navy blue city badge and the kind of calm expression that spelled trouble. She walked straight into the garden while Karen was watering her organic patch. Are you the one who installed this? Samantha asked. Karen turned. Smiled. Yes. Finally someone from the city here. I've been saying for weeks this place needs structure. You don't have a permit. Karen blinked. Excuse me? This plot was registered to a disabled resident under the Inclusive Community Space Ordinance. You've illegally modified and occupied it. Karen laughed nervously. I was improving it. You destroyed a resident's ADA-protected space. Silence. Karen's grip tightened on her watering can. Samantha opened her folder. You'll need to vacate immediately. And there will be a formal review. And just like that, the smile vanished from Karen's face. Because for the first time, she realized. She'd picked the wrong garden to steal. Karen didn't take it well. When Samantha handed her the city's official violation notice, her entire face changed. That tight, condescending smile twisted into something sharper. Her voice, once syrupy and fake-friendly, turned shrill. This is harassment, she snapped. I've done nothing wrong. I improved that plot. You people should be thanking me. Evelyn watched from the edge of the path, arms crossed, calm but alert. Karen pointed at her like she was the criminal. She wasn't even using it right. It was just weeds and scraggly herbs. Look at it now. It's vibrant, it's organized. I made it better. Samantha didn't flinch. Ma'am, this garden is public space governed by ADA protections. You're not just in violation of community rules, you've potentially broken a civil rights ordinance. Karen's mouth dropped. I'm being discriminated against. I moved here to contribute. And now I'm being punished for caring? A few neighbors had gathered nearby, drawn by the commotion. Phones came out. Someone whispered, Is she yelling at Evelyn again? Karen spun around. Go ahead. Film it. Post it. Let everyone see how ridiculous this is. She stormed back to her plot, yanked out one of her handmade signs, and flung it to the ground. You people are so ungrateful. This neighborhood was going downhill until I showed up. Samantha made a quick call. 2 more city officials arrived within 10 minutes, one with a clipboard, the other with a measuring tape and a city zoning permit folder. They began documenting everything. Karen paced around like a caged animal, muttering under her breath, occasionally shouting things like, "I'm calling my lawyer. You'll regret this. This is why nothing ever improves in this town." Someone tried to calm her down, a woman from the HOA named Clara. She approached gently, hands raised. "Karen, maybe it's time to step back." "Don't Karen me!" she snapped. "I'm the only one here trying to do something useful. This whole place is a joke." "A welfare garden!" the words echoed. Even the wind paused. A man holding his toddler gasped. Evelyn's hand clenched tighter on her chair's joystick. Samantha's jaw tensed. "Excuse me?" she asked, voice cold. Karen realized what she said, but it was too late. "I didn't mean it like that." But no one was listening anymore. Because in that moment, every unspoken suspicion, every private complaint, every raised eyebrow over the past weeks became crystal clear. By evening, the incident was trending on the town's Nextdoor app. Screenshots, clips, comments from longtime residents who had stayed silent too long. "She told my kid his wheelchair was in the way of her compost bin. She yelled at my husband for pruning too slowly. He's recovering from a stroke. She rearranged my plot without asking, said I didn't understand symmetry." The garden, once a haven, had become a stage. And Karen had cast herself as the villain. The following day, she tried to fight back. She sent an email blast to the HOA with subject line, "Urgent, defending community integrity." In it, she claimed she was being bullied, targeted, and gaslit by certain individuals with influence in city government. She accused Evelyn of hoarding space, said the ADA protections were too broadly applied, and referred to the mayor's office as weaponized bureaucracy. She signed off with, "I will not be silenced. I am the voice this community needs." She clicked send, and within minutes screenshots were everywhere. The backlash was immediate. Over 100 residents signed a petition demanding her removal from all community spaces. Local news picked up the story under the headline, "Woman occupies accessible garden bed, claims victimhood after city intervention." The mayor's office released a brief but direct statement. "We stand firmly behind inclusive spaces. The Meadowview Garden was built to ensure dignity and access for all residents, and that mission will not be compromised." Karen's name, though not mentioned, was already known. Because when you scream about injustice while sitting on stolen soil, people notice. When the emails leaked, Karen thought she still had a chance. She posted a long-winded apology on the neighborhood Facebook group, part denial, part self-praise. She wrote about how deeply misunderstood she was, how she only wanted to bring order to chaos, and how she hoped people could see past the smear campaign. But then, the internet did what it always does. It started digging. Within 24 hours, screenshots emerged from her previous neighborhood 2 towns over. A community thread from 6 months back titled, "Beware of Cheryl K. Our self-appointed garden queen." In it, dozens of complaints. She'd redug a neighbor's vegetable beds without asking. Told a wheelchair-bound veteran that low beds are lazy landscaping. Once accused a biracial teen of stealing mint from a communal plot. She'd been asked to leave the HOA twice. Apparently, Karen didn't relocate for a job. She'd been quietly pushed out. Now, that past had followed her. And this time, it had an audience. The local paper published a front-page article. "History repeats. Garden dispute sparks ADA backlash." They interviewed residents from both towns. They featured Evelyn. And not just as a victim, but as a pillar. Evelyn didn't ask for the spotlight. She never wanted it. But when the mayor's office called and asked if she'd be willing to speak publicly, just a short message about inclusion, respect, and community, she agreed. On one condition. "I don't want it to be about her," she told Samantha. "I want it to be about what we're growing, together." And so she spoke. From her wheelchair, under the old peach tree in the garden. The very plot Karen had tried to erase. Local news filmed it. Kids sat cross-legged in the grass. Neighbors who had never spoken to Evelyn before gathered to listen. She kept it short. We built this space so no one would feel like a burden. So no one would feel invisible. And if someone's presence here makes another person feel like less, then it's not a community. It's a club. And this isn't a club. It's a garden. And gardens grow best with room for everyone. The crowd clapped. And somewhere across the street, behind closed blinds, Karen watched. That same afternoon, the city issued a formal citation against her. Unlawful modification of a public access space. Violation of ADA-compliant zoning. And because she had emailed false claims about city officials? A written reprimand for slander of a municipal office. She was fined $1,200 and given a written trespass order from the garden until further notice. The HOA voted to suspend her community engagement privileges, which, in Karen terms, meant she could no longer attend meetings, organize events, or submit proposals. Someone anonymously taped a copy of the ADA garden guidelines to her front door. It stayed there for 2 days. Meanwhile, Evelyn's garden bed was restored. Volunteers helped replant her herbs, and the local nursery donated new flowers. They added a new sign, made of metal this time, not wood. It read, "In memory of Jack and in honor of all who grow from the ground up." Karen disappeared for a few weeks. Then quietly listed her townhouse. The listing read, "Charming property in a vibrant, tight-knit community." She moved out before the next HOA meeting. And nobody said goodbye. By the time Karen's moving truck pulled out of the neighborhood, nobody waved. She left quietly, early in the morning, hoping to avoid more cameras, more looks, more whispers. The SUV she used to park like it owned the street now rolled slowly down the lane, just another vehicle trying to vanish. But even in her absence, the consequences remained. And something else, too. Change. At the next HOA meeting, Evelyn was there. So were the city reps. The chairs were full. People who hadn't shown up in years sat shoulder to shoulder. And for once, the agenda wasn't about lawn height or seasonal decorations. It was about protection, respect, prevention. The board introduced the first-ever community inclusion policy, drafted with input from the mayor's office, the ADA council, and Evelyn herself. It included a permanent garden plot registry with accessibility priority, a zero-tolerance clause for personal appropriation of public space, required cultural awareness training for all future HOA board members. No more loopholes. No more gray areas. No more Karens rewriting the rules for their own ego. But it didn't stop at policy. Something deeper had shifted. Neighbors started checking in on each other. The family 2 doors down installed a ramp for their aging dad, and no one said it ruined the look. A teenager with Down syndrome planted his first zucchini in the raised beds, with help, with pride, and with space. Evelyn got a standing ovation at the summer block party. Not because she fought, but because she stood, and never once raised her voice. The garden bloomed harder that year than it had in a decade. Maybe it was the new soil. Maybe it was the extra hands that showed up to help replant. Or maybe it was the first time everyone truly felt like they belonged there. Without judgment. Without fear of being pushed aside. Without someone yelling that they were doing it wrong. As for Karen? Well, her name lingered only in cautionary tones. People used it like folklore. "Don't go full Karen," they'd say when someone got too controlling at a volunteer event. "We don't want another plot incident," whispered during planning meetings. And every time someone rolled by Evelyn's garden in a wheelchair or walker or cane, they paused just a moment longer. To admire what stayed. Not what got ripped out. Justice didn't show up with sirens. It came with quiet steps, strong roots, and a reminder. This is a shared space. And no one gets to grow by uprooting someone else. Every neighborhood has one. A Karen. Someone who thinks rules don't apply to them. Someone who mistakes control for community. Who sees inclusion as inconvenience, and entitlement as effort. But if you're lucky, Your neighborhood also has an Evelyn. Someone who builds instead of tears down. Who speaks with kindness, but stands their ground. Who doesn't need volume to make an impact, just roots. Weeks passed. Summer drifted into fall. The tomatoes turned red again. Evelyn could be found most mornings tending her restored plot, sipping tea with neighbors, teaching kids the difference between parsley and cilantro. People stopped by just to say hello. To thank her. Not just for fighting back, but for showing how to do it. With grace. With dignity. And with a kind of quiet strength that didn't make headlines, but changed hearts. One day, a reporter came back to follow up. They asked Evelyn if she had anything she wanted to say now that it was all over. She looked around the garden. At the new growth. The chalk drawings on the sidewalk. The sign with her husband's name beneath the peach tree. Then she said, "This garden was never about food. It's about space. Having it. Holding it. Sharing it." The reporter asked if she forgave Karen. She smiled, a little tired. "I don't need to forgive someone who was never really in charge of me. People like that want attention. I just wanted a place to plant my lavender." And with that, she turned back to her garden. There's something special about watching justice happen in slow motion. No yelling. No gloating. Just a gentle hand pulling weeds. Making space for what should have been growing there all along. So, what's the takeaway? Maybe it's this. Respect is the foundation of any real community. And when you try to uproot someone else's dignity to plant your own ego, don't be surprised when the whole town shows up to replant you.